South Africa observes Human Rights Day, and it is, of course, Human Rights Month, all of March, and it is under the theme 3 decades of respect for and promotion of human rights. And this year's theme pays tribute to the 30th anniversary of freedom and democracy in our country. Now, the main event will be held at the George Thabe Stadium in Sharpeville in Gauteng, where our reporters have been reporting from, and President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver the keynote address later on. Now, Human Rights Day is historically connected to the 1960 Sharpeville massacre, where police opened fire on a crowd of people, killing 69. And to discuss this matter further, we joined virtually now by Professor Pumla Gobodo-Madikizela from the Center for the Study of Afterlife of Violence and Reparative Quest. Thanks so much for your time this morning, Prof, and welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, Sakina. It's a pleasure to be here.
So it's 30 years of democracy, which we will be, of course, punctuating next month on the 27th of April. But as we look at human rights and commemorate 30 years of human rights under democracy, how are human rights faring in South Africa 3 decades on from democracy?
Thank you, Sakina. I was pleased that you referenced Sharpeville as the origin of this commemoration today. And I think it's important also to remember how the Declaration of Human Rights was established. It was in the aftermath of World War II, after the terrible atrocities and catastrophe of the Holocaust, that the Declaration of Human Rights was established, and its importance is really the points that you are making, that it is a foundational principle that enshrines the rights of everyone, no matter their color, or race or status in society, the right to life and the right to security. Now, when you think about where we are in South Africa, regarding all these principles, we really are faring very, very poorly, particularly when we think about the fact that we are marking 30 years this year of post-apartheid democracy. The socioeconomic inequalities that continue to plague the country, the majority of South Africans, are a hindering reality for people to access basic human rights such as healthcare, education, housing. These are issues that are really confronting many South Africans, millions of South Africans. I live in a town that every day when I drive to work, I pass the growing squatter community along the way towards Stellenbosch. And that clearly shows for us, it makes this crisis of human rights very visible to all South Africans. And this is not only around Cape Town, around major cities in the country. And so we are faring very poorly as far as the attainment of human rights for the majority of South Africans is concerned.
And yet, when we listen to the politicians speak, Professor, they want to tell us about the gains that have been made. And perhaps they are right in doing so, to remind us of how far we have come. But how helpful is that? For example, this morning, in speaking to the Western Cape Premier, Alan Winde, our colleagues, Samkele Maseko, speaking to the Premier of Gauteng, and both of them at pains to paint a rosy picture of what has been done, how far we've traversed on this path. But is that helpful in addressing the plight that you've just sketched for us of the communities who are in want, those who are in need, who are living in squalor? How helpful is such an attitude?
You know, the answer to that question is to ask the people themselves, and the people will tell you that their lives have not really progressed much since the end of apartheid. In fact, we conducted research here in the Western Cape with our team in 3 communities, in Bonteheuwel, in Athlone, in Bonteheuwel, Langa, and in Worcester. And overwhelmingly, the young people who were born, after the end of apartheid, say something that is very troubling to us. They use the expression that things are worse for them. In fact, even some of the parents who are my generation, who grew up under apartheid, they will use that expression that things are worse. It doesn't mean that apartheid was better, not at all. What it does mean is that they expected their life to be better under their own government. And in a way, during apartheid, they expected to be treated badly. They expected that the state under apartheid will trample over their human rights, but then they wanted something better under their own government. And this is what we see we hear overwhelmingly from people who are on the ground. It is very unhelpful for politicians not to face to the fact, not to face to the problems that continue to exist. In fact, in some sectors have been exacerbated by the poor socioeconomic conditions. I think what would be an important beginning would be for them to recognize that a lot of work still needs to be done. It's important for us, of course, to acknowledge the strides that have been made, the achievements that have been made. But when you look at the problem of the continuing deterioration of education in ordinary people's lives, communities, in the townships, in the rural areas, people have to travel for long distances to go to find better schools for their children. That is not a mark of the attainment of human rights.
Professor, we have about a minute left, so rather than pose a question, let me just ask you for a message perhaps to South Africa on this 30th anniversary of our freedom as a country and marking Human Rights Day today. What should we do? How do we move this needle forward?
When we ended apartheid, it was really the actions of communities, individuals who were vigilant in terms of demanding their human rights and taking action. What is important now is collective responsibility to address the challenges that are facing South Africa, that each one of us as individuals, as communities, we have a responsibility to confront our governments, to come together in solidarity to fight for social justice and the change that we want to happen in our communities.
Professor, thank you so much for your time. Professor Pumla Gobodo-Madikizela from the Center for the Study of the Afterlife of Violence and Reparative Quest. That is the professor helping us reflect on Human Rights Day.